on board. It's amazing service, the best service that you're going to get, certainly with Amawaterways. But we're taking you to and through the destination. Your river cruise ship with Amawaterways is your luxury floating hotel with great service, great features, amenities, and other things on board. Excellent cuisine. In fact, we're going to be bringing regional cuisine on board every step of the way. Those regional wines that I'm sure you want to taste are going to be there as well for you too. So again, a very different experience. But the other part that I'll mention with river cruising that makes it really nice is that we dock in the heart of these towns. So to put that in perspective, I don't know if anybody's been to Los Angeles or is in the Los Angeles area, but you know that if you take a cruise ship into LA, you know where you're going to dock. It's going to be down there, you know, at the major port area. It's not the area where you're just going to hop right off the ship and go explore town. Difference with river cruising is that we dock in the heart of these towns. So in some cases, literally, it's a few steps off and you're on those cobblestone streets that are centuries old. So just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And the last part I'll mention is this little insignia that we have here down on the lower left that says Berlitz highest rated ships in Europe. We're very proud of receiving that designation. We have won more awards than any other river cruise line in the industry. Berlitz is a company that does ratings, not only of ocean cruises, but they started doing river cruise ships about 4 years ago, and they go on as mystery shoppers. So no one is ever privy to when these folks are coming on board, but then when they step off board, they're writing their reviews of their entire experience. So having received this designation, we're really, really happy and proud about that. One of the things that really brings that to life are the cruise managers, really the entire staff. To be completely fair, we have an amazing team on board every one of our vessels. Your cruise manager, however, they're your VIP guests. They are really pretty much the most knowledgeable when it comes to knowing about all the destinations and how to point you in the right direction, what recommendations and suggestions to give to you. And they're very, very friendly, as you would imagine they have to be, right? So they're leading evening discussions on maybe the next day's port of call and what those shore tours are going to be. The other thing that's unique for Amawaterways is that our cruise managers will join our guests before the cruise and after the cruise. If you're doing a land extension, that's unique to Amawaterways. Nobody else does that. So what's nice about it, once again, they're there to kind of, you know, hold your hand, if you will, lead you on an excursion or two. But I think equally important, if not more important, they're there to build that rapport and kind of set the tone before you've even stepped on board the ship, which is really something special. So I wanted to start by highlighting our cruise managers. Also, one of our most popular staterooms are our twin balcony staterooms. You certainly want to know what the accommodations are going to look like. Rudy Schreiner, who is one of our owners of the company, he's actually born in Vienna, so the river is near and dear to him, but he's also an architect, so that's near and dear to him as well. He's actually designed all the ships that we have on the water. He was the very first in the river cruise industry to introduce the twin balcony staterooms that we're looking at here. So you get the French balcony and a full step-out balcony. If you consider the time of year that you're traveling, maybe if it's going to be in the hot months in the middle of summer, or maybe you're doing a Christmas market cruise and it's going to be a bit cooler, you really have the option to either step outside or take advantage of the inside. The French balcony side has that nice window that opens up with a nice little sitting area in front of it. The sliding glass window, of course, does open, but it's pressed all the way up against the windows. So even if you're sitting comfortably inside, you get some great views. And then when the weather is wonderful, you can step outside in the morning for a morning coffee, some wine in the evening. Also, in our staterooms, we have our technology. So you can leave your laptop at home. You can still stay connected and use our computers in the room. We've got complimentary Wi-Fi, not only in the stateroom, but throughout the entire ship. So just a way to keep our guests staying connected. The panoramic lounges. This is pretty typical of what you'll find aboard all of our vessels, with the exception of a few of our more exotic ships. The panoramic lounge is really that main sort of family room of the ship. It's where everybody comes to gather. You've been out all day, you come back, you're sharing some stories of the different excursions you've been on. Just a great place to meet some other guests. It's also that place where, as I mentioned before, the cruise managers, maybe they're going to give some evening discussions. Maybe we'll bring on a special evening guest lecturer or some local entertainment. You know, if we're in Vienna, for example, we might bring on a local my gosh, forgive me, some classical musicians. Or if we're in maybe Spitz, Germany, we'll bring on some local folklore dancers. So it's those sort of things that you'll get to participate. We've got a dedicated pianist. There's a bar in the area. It turns into a full-blown disco in the evening. So just a really fun place to come and gather, in addition to those amazing views with those beautiful windows surrounding the front. On Amawaterways, we also have some sort of a water feature on board every one of our ships on the sun deck. So whether it's a pool that we're looking at right here, maybe a smaller whirlpool jacuzzi type, some ships even have larger pools or both a pool and jacuzzi, you're going to find that on board. But just another great place to hang out. And then we also get a lot of questions about the drinks. Are the drinks all inclusive? What drinks are included? By design, we've set it up as such. So you're going to include, we're going to include premium beers, premium wines, all your soft drinks at every lunch and at every dinner. Our servers are extremely generous with topping those off. If you want to have champagne mimosas at breakfast, we'll include that. And we also include an open cocktail hour with some signature drinks every evening before dinner. So all those, it's going to be included. By design, it's that period after lunch up until the cocktail hour or after dinner that we don't include drinks. And I keep saying by design because, as an example, let's say that you're in Arles, France, in the middle of the day. We don't want you staying on board the ship for those drinks that you feel like you paid for. We want you off in town with the local residents, enjoying a local winery, enjoying a local pub. So it's really for that reason. But that I wanted to address concerning the drinks. And then the dining. We didn't want to just, include a nice menu on board. We wanted to make it something extra special. So in our main dining room, it's not the picture we're looking at here, but in our main dining room, it's a bit larger. That operates as more of a progressive dining experience, if you will. And what I mean by that, as we're passing through these different towns, let's say when you're in Strasbourg or when you're Chalon-sur-Saône in France, we're going to include those regional cuisines and favorites from those areas on board the ship. We're going to give you a large variety, but if you still want that steak to go to, we'll have that. If you want that Caesar salad, we'll have that. This image that we're looking at here is a second dining option. It's an alternative dining option. There's no additional charge for this. This is our chef's table restaurant. This is an amazing 6-course meal, but I always kind of describe it more of as a tasting menu because within each of those courses, you're going to get a choice. And if you want to taste a couple of things from each of those courses, you're certainly welcome to do that. We'll also include up to 4 different wine pairings, a couple of whites, a couple of reds. But the other part that I think kind of caps it off is that you get to witness the chef and his team behind this glass window cooking station, preparing the meals, plating the food, in addition to this amazing scenery that you're taking in. I can tell you hands down, it's my favorite experience on board the ship and something you definitely want to make sure you take time to do. The shore tours, something else that I want to point out that makes Amawaterways unique in this respect is that we give you a lot of options. So at every port of call, we're going to include on average 4 shore tours for you to choose from. In addition to that, we break them up into what we call our gentle, our regular, interactive. So the gentle, as an example, might be if you're traveling with some much elderly folks that maybe move a little bit slower, but want to still get out there. They can still get out there. They want to see some core historic sites. That might be the one for them. The regular one is going to pick up the pace just a little bit, maybe not avoid some steps and take in just a little bit more. And then the active would be just what you would imagine. It might be a guided cycling tour. It might be a guided hiking tour. But then we also, in addition to that, have our late risers. The late risers would be, I always share this as an example. I'm sure my wife can hear me right now. She likes to sleep in. She wants to enjoy her meals. She wants to enjoy some coffee a little bit longer and then get more of a mid-morning start. I'm the guy that wants to get up, grab that morning coffee and get going right away. So we have the option for both of us. We also, with the guided cycling tours, while we do have them on board, they're not exclusive for the guided cycling tours. If you want to reserve those for a few hours, head out into town, go and explore, and then bring them back a little bit later and rest up a bit, they're there for you to do that as well too. So lots of options there. And then now getting into the itinerary itself of Essence of Burgundy and Provence. So this, as you would imagine, covers all the highlights between those two regions in Burgundy and Provence. You can see it starts up in the north end for the cruise section in Chalon-sur-Saône, makes its way all the way down into Arles. But then you have some options. We have Switzerland, as you can see on the map here. We have Spain, as you can see on the map here. You can do 3 additional nights on the front end or the back end, depending which direction you're traveling, in Geneva. That also takes in a stopover in, Annecy, if you want to visit Annecy. And then on the opposite end, you can take in an additional 3 nights in Barcelona. And I'll remind you at the end what I'm going to share right now. We have an exclusive offer. We've never done anything like this before. And this is one of just 4 itineraries for the month of February, where the Barcelona package, those 3 nights, is included if you book on certain select dates for 2022. So keep that one in mind, and we certainly Melanie can help you find the best deal for that too. But starting in Chalon-sur-Saône, so this is located in southern Burgundy, really at the heart of the Côte Chalonneau wine region. Just charming riverside town. And if you have a palate for fine wine here, you'll be able to satisfy that urge with some memorable visits to some of the local vineyards and the caves in this area as well. And just a little side note, it's actually home to a gentleman by the name of Joseph Nicephore Niepce. He's actually a man who's credited as taking the first ever photograph through a process called heliography. So there's a chance to visit that particular museum also when you're in town here. And then from here, we'll have a chance to choose from several different tours, including a visit to the Chateau de Coche. This was a former fortress of the Dukes of Burgundy, dating back to the 11th century, and really acted as a form of protection from the route between Paris, making your way over to Chalon-sur-Saône. Then there's also the Hospice de Beaune, which was actually a former charitable almshouse. And this was founded in 1443 by the Chancellor of Burgundy as a hospital for the poor. So these are just a few of the options. Again, we're not putting everything out there. The part that I want you to keep in mind is that with these options that we're including here, these different short tour options, there might be a few instances that you could actually take in 2 short tours. More often than not, it'll be one of them that you would choose from. But in addition to that, we always make sure that we give our guests some ample time to go out and explore on their own so you don't feel rushed. And then later in the day, we're going to enjoy a scenic sailing down to Tourneau, or pedal if you like to. You can actually pedal from Tourneau all the way over to Chalon-sur-Saône by the guided cycling tour. We get a lot of guests that are very active. You know, we have a gym on board. I don't think I mentioned we have a gym on board. So for those enthusiasts, if you will, they have an opportunity if they wanted to bike all the way across, or they can just do the cycling in town. And here you can also sample some of the region's famous white Maconnais wines. There's some also really wonderful restaurants in the area. One of them actually being a Michelin star restaurant too. It's a 1-star Michelin restaurant. And then Burgundy's countryside, arguably France's most gorgeous countryside with its rolling hills, dotted with these beautiful mustard fields and some medieval villages. You'll also note that Burgundy's vineyards have been granted UNESCO World Heritage status in recognition of the region's centuries-old history of viticulture. So a lot of history when it comes to those things. So visiting, you know, taking a tour through the countryside, the Chateau Carmartine, it's actually another optional visit that's really worth considering. It's surrounded by these beautiful white moats that we see here in this picture. The Chateau started its construction back in 1606. There are also some really beautiful French gardens that you get an opportunity to explore. We'll then travel overnight to Macon to enjoy some more wine tasting, of course, right? You can also do another bike tour, another city tour, as well as some leisure time to explore on your own. And there's some excellent restaurants in this area. You know, a really small little historic center, but definitely worth visiting. Some narrow strips, pedestrian-friendly areas along the waterfront to go out and explore. And there's some top quality Maconnais wines also to be found in this area. So if you're into the Maconnais wines, this might be an area that you want to go and kind of explore and bring some of those back. And by the way, you can bring these drinks back on board the ship. We, again, unlike the ocean cruises, we allow you to bring drinks back on board the ship. So we get a lot of guests that found some wines they like. They may pick up a bottle or two, bring them back on board, share it with some other guests, enjoy it in their stateroom, or just pack it up safely and bring it back home. So now en route to Lyon is the town of Villefranche-sur-Saône. It is the southern capital of the Beaujolais wine region. And Beaujolais is known for being the wines uncommonly light and really delicate, if you're familiar with those, to the point where they actually chill them very often like a white wine. So we're going to have an opportunity to experience some of those vineyards and do some wine tastings at some of those estates in that area. And then upon arriving into Lyon, we're actually going to arrive a little bit later in the evening. And this, I think, is a really dramatic entry, if you will. It's what we call the Illumination of Lights cruise. So as we're entering into town, it's going to be in the evening. The entire city is alit, and it's just absolutely amazing. Really, anywhere that you would be in town, it's amazing, especially if you're up on the hilltop side, Fauvier Hill, as they call it. But there's nothing kind of like being on the red carpet, if you will, on the river in that perspective, looking out on the banks and up along the sides. It's just absolutely gorgeous. There's a chance to do that. Lots to explore in this town. There's what they call the Traboules, and these are these old Renaissance passageways, some 40 which are actually still open to the public, running beneath the buildings in the direction of the Saône River. And this was so a lot of the I believe it was the silk artisans in the area could kind of transport their goods. Then, of course, there's Fulvia Basilica that you can see and look at this particular picture kind of way up to the top over to the right. I think the next slide has another picture on the right side where we see that archangel up on top looking down over the city. Now, this is the older side of the city. Down below, you're going to find those really old medieval buildings, those old cobblestone streets, those old passageways that I just talked about. And then across the river that we're looking out onto, that's more of the newer side, certainly a bit flatter. You'll find a lot of great restaurants. So my wife and I enjoyed a really wonderful one when we were there. I guess now it was back in November 2019, but some great places to go out and explore, some good shopping there as well. And then if you're a self-described foodie, I think our Lyon tasting tour is one that you would definitely want to partake of. Tasting things such as the Comté cheese. Now, this is a cheese that's made from unpasteurized cow's milk, and it's quite popular. It actually has the highest production of all the French AOC cheeses in this particular region at around 64,000 tons annually. There's the Lyonnaise sausage with brioche. So a number of great things to go out and explore on this particular tasting tour. Later in the day, we will continue sailing. We're going to make our way over to Vienne, and here we will see some of the marvelously preserved ruins in the city, some of the best preserved in the area, as well as an opportunity to take in a really charming mini train ride around the city if you opt to do that. In addition, we also have a guided bike tour. There's also a guided hiking tour to the monastery atop Mount Pipit, which is just kind of looking down over the city that we're looking at right here. And then there's also the cloister at Saint Trophime. This is an amazing structure and a piece of architecture, and specific to talking about it are the pillars. Each one of these pillars has been detailed to tell various biblical stories, such as the empty tomb of Jesus after the Transfiguration. There's the Moses of meeting God by the burning bush, Saint Stephen being stoned, in addition to a number of other ones. But the art is just absolutely breathtaking. It's amazing. Then we'll continue on to Valence, and we'll include visits at the Saint Apollinaris Cathedral to do some wine tasting. We can do a bike tour. There's another cooking class in addition to some free time. So again, keep in mind, these are just some highlights of a number of options for you to consider. And then we'll arrive in Avion, France. We'll make our way down to Avion, France. So the city of popes. This is actually the center of the Catholic Church in the mid 14th century, when its Palais des Papes was actually equivalent to today's Vatican. And there was actually a period, I couldn't quote the exact period, where there was a bit of a struggle, where there was actually considered two popes on the throne, if you will, between Avion and Rome, where the Vatican is today too. But this has also been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site status. There's this beautiful fortified city that you can see right here. These walls, you get to experience that up close and personal. Some great little alleyways that we take in a guided tour on. You can meet with some of the local artisans, pick up some local things, but just a really fun place to see as well. The culinary tasting that you can do there, which takes you again through some of those alleyways that I mentioned, meet with some of those local artisans, but just a beautiful town to go through and explore. Another highlight that I think is something definitely that you need to do, especially if you appreciate art, traveling through this area. We make our way into Arles, and of course there was during a 2-year stay that Van Gogh created some of his most renowned masterpieces. There was The Starry Night, there was Café Terrace at Night. This of course was before he suffered his infamous mental breakdown. We do have a wonderful walking tour where you can learn much more about the artist and his works here, and then of course some time to explore on your own in addition to that. That is basically some highlights of this amazing itinerary. And then I just wanted to flash this highlight once again so you could see, but again, remember those pre and post options. Honestly, in all sincerity, if you're not doing the pre or post option, even with us, consider doing the pre at least, just because if you made the mistake like I have, Melanie, hopefully you haven't made this mistake before, but you're kind of gung-ho, you think I'm just going to go, I'm going to get there and I'm going to get going. It's going to catch up to you, and you're going to feel at some point in time early on that you're really missing out on some things. So give yourself at least a day in advance to catch up. And if you do it with us, you have this wonderful option to tie in Annecy, Dijon, of stopover at Dijon, if you're making the stop into Geneva. And then, of course, on the opposite end, we have that 3 nights that's included for you, at least right now, on select dates in Barcelona, Spain, for 3 nights too. So again, complimentary land package. This you must book by February 28th of this year, and it's available on select sailings too. So again, Melanie has all this information. And then the last part that I want to kind of mention and tie some things up, because these are questions that people are rightfully asking. You know, what's the stability of this company? Are they going to be around? How are they protecting that experience that, you know, that I want to go and experience, that they've been operating prior to COVID? We actually had a ship that was sailing July 5th, and it sailed for a total of 4 months. Now, it was chartered by a German company. So why am I mentioning this to you? The main reason is that we had a chance to put these things into practice. We were the only American river cruise line that had a ship sailing on the waters. We sailed again for 4 months. And the part that I'd say we're most proud of and happy and just grateful for is that nobody got COVID on board during that entire time. So a number of things we put in place, of course, to help ensure that. We sailed with no more than 100 guests maximum. Our shore tours went out with no more than between 10 to 15 guests maximum. You know, sanitary cleaning around the clock, day and night. We put up these plexiglasses between the different sitting lounge areas. We had it up in front of our concierge desk and other areas where it was necessary. Similar to going to a restaurant anytime recently. When you walk into the restaurant, you wear your mask. If you're getting up to use a restroom or when you're leaving, you wear your mask. But when you're sitting down, which really is the majority of the time, you have your mask off. So that's sort of the same thing that we have on board. We also offered transfers for guests. So if there was a couple traveling, we had a private sedan, so they weren't traveling with other people. A small family, we'd have a private minivan. We even put together our first select in-room dining menu. We've never done that before. So if you want to have an in-room movie night or dine on your balcony, that was now an option for you. So some good things. Again, the other part that I'll mention, go back for a minute, is that something we never thought we'd really have to speak about, but within the ship design, remember our owner, Rudy Schreiner, he's an architect by trade. He actually designed into the building of our ships that each of the staterooms and each of the public areas have their own separate heating and coiling system. So what that basically means is that it's air in and air out of each of those individual rooms. It's not air that's being circulated around the ship. So just another safety feature that people are kind of aware about these days. Another thing that people kind of ask, you know, how can I protect my trip? Something that we've also extended, this is going through the end of March, a few things. One of them is what we call our Ultimate Cruise Flexibility Plan. And that is something that will protect your cruise only portion of your trip. What it basically does is allow you, let's say that you're booked to travel in, say, June of this year. Time is getting a little bit closer. Let's say you just feel uncertain, even if we know for a fact we're sailing, you don't want to go yet. We'll allow you to move that cruise to another date. No charge. We just pick it up and move it to another date that has availability. The only difference might be the pay base, the cost based on the time of year that you're traveling. Our Travel Waiver Plus is another option. This is available for a nominal fee of $175 per person, but it allows you to cancel for any reason up to 24 hours prior to departure. Now, the difference between this and the Ultimate Cruise Flexibility is that this covers the entire portion of your trip. So if you're doing air, and maybe you're doing some pre and post packages, in addition to the cruise, it allows you to make those changes. And what it does, though, it's a little bit different. It protects the full value of your trip. So to put that in easy terms, let's say you spent $10,000 as a trip of a lifetime, and you made a decision to cancel or change at a time which would say normally be a 50% penalty. In that instance, we would refund you 50% of what you paid to us. That other 50% that would normally be under penalties, we would retain that as a future cruise credit. So when you're ready to travel again, we've got that credit on file for you. So it may be a little confusing. I just want to give you an overview of that. Melanie certainly has the details on that. And then we have a basic cruise protection plan also. And Melanie, that really kind of concludes everything I think we wanted to cover. And I want to be sure to flash your contact information here. If you don't have this readily available, we've got her phone number and her email address. So you can easily get in touch with her. But Melanie, any questions you might have or anybody else, I invite you to ask some questions, please.
Richard, I just want you to touch on what it means when, this cruise obviously is very special because it goes through the heart of wine country and there's a lot of wineries and vineyards. So it's kind of implicated that that's going to be part of the experience. And one thing that I will say also is for those of you that have favorite wines in this region, favorite wineries, it is very easy for me to also arrange a private driver, or if you have a group of people, when you are stopped in these ports, to get you to those wineries as well. So that is a great way to be able to get through the heart of France and take advantage of that. But Amawaterways also has specific dates throughout the year that are called wine cruises in addition, including on this itinerary. So Richard, would you just explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Melanie. Those are some really, really wonderful itineraries to look at, sailing dates in particular. So we actually set these up maybe a dozen years ago, somewhere about there. And it kind of happened a little bit by fluke. Our owners, Rudy Schreiner, his wife, Christine, cars for sailing, and they happened to be on board with a friend who's a wine owner. And they thought, it'd be kind of nice if we did a little wine tasting for some of the guests while I'm on board. Completely impromptu. The long story made short for this is that it was a hit. People loved it. That next year we started offering a handful. It's now grown to this point where we offer between 60, even in some years up to 70 different wine sailing departures. Now, what is that? It's basically where we send along a North American wine host or maybe a winemaker. Maybe he owns the vineyard as well, but he's going to be the VIP guest. So in addition, right, in addition to everything that we would offer on a normal cruise, you may have some extra excursions to, 16th century old vineyards. You're going to do some wine tasting, meet with the owners, do some wine pairings. He's going to be leading some discussions on maybe how those Moselle Rieslings differ from those Alsatian Rieslings, how the old world wines differ from the new world wines. On one evening, there's a wonderful wine pairing menu on board the ship that he's going to lead some discussions on as well. So these are really, really special. We get a lot of people, last note, that may not even really be too into wine, but they love the overall experience and idea of it. So it even attracts a lot of non-wine enthusiasts.
And just to note, it's not an extra charge. It's just a perk.
Correct.
So when you get on one of those where you have the winemaker or the winery along, their insight is very special. I've done it multiple times and it's very enjoyable. Even the seminars they do on board about their own wines and comparing it to what you're seeing in the region that you're in, it's very special. But I love the fact that if you choose one of those, you get all that extra bonus for no additional money.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And we've had some great folks on board. In fact, I know we have one next year. Bogle Wines is one we have coming up next year. We've had like Loire Wines as well too. So we get some really well-known names as well.
Sure. Now, you've all been muted, and thank you so much for doing that while Richard was talking. If you have any questions, just go to your screen and click the unmute and ask away. We'll try and do it one at a time so we don't talk over. But if anybody has any questions, just unmute yourself now.
Fantastic. And it's totally okay if you come up with questions afterwards. Melanie is great at answering some questions, but she knows how to reach me as well.
You can figure out how to unmute yourselves. I can't seem to figure out how to unmute you all at the same time.
Let me see if I can figure that out by chance.
It seems like I should be able to do that, right? All right, so I'm just going to go through this real quick and hit the button. So if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and unmute yourselves. Nope. Anyone there?
Yep, still here.
Did you have any questions?
I don't at this time. This has been very helpful.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, I don't want to hang up on anybody if they have any, but please, if you do, just reach back out to me if you couldn't get yourself unmuted and let me know what it is. And I'll send up a follow-up email with all of the information that Richard has talked about so you guys have it to review.
Excellent.
Excellent. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join. Thank you, Melanie, so much for coordinating this as well too. I know so many people are doing these virtual calls and there's a lot going on. So hopefully you found this a bit inspiring and educational, but thank you everybody and be safe.
No, it was great. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.